Alright, so let's step right into step one. As you can see, there's quite a bit going on here, so I'll just point out some of the things that we need to get going on. There's a part that is shown but not numbered in the instructions, and this is actually part G4. Find that so that you're ready to do this build. So here I am. I have the parts all cleaned up for step one and laid out. And again, there's the instructions. I did this photography in my old style, so I wanted to still show you at least what I've been doing. So I'm starting off in the corner with parts E38, E39, and D35 to create a canister of some sort, gluing it together, and then I will be clamping it to keep it together and letting that dry as I work with some of the other parts. And there's a little bit of time involved. The plastic used in this kit is actually pretty nice to work with. It's got a forgiving texture, or no, texture's not the right word, a forgiving feel to it, but I've noticed that if you tend to dig a little too much with a hobby knife for cleaning stuff up, it'll take a little extra out. So be aware that that might be a problem. I also noticed that some of the parts are very well rendered in step one, and some of the other parts are shallower, and this might be an issue if you are looking for specialized detail or opening anything up. I'm thinking in particular of part B5, which looks like the lower part of the transmission oil cooler transaxle, something along those lines. You can see that in the far left of the video. Just something to be aware of. Otherwise, I'm actually fairly impressed with the injection molding and the layout of the kit. Definitely a fair amount of detail for what you get. So now I'm pulling up one side of the frame right there for you to see, and I'm going to start by swapping the pieces out, apparently. And now I'm starting to build one of the end frames. So this involves parts, looks like K39, and in this video I have the unfortunate habit of doing the gluing and the work off camera before I put it back down. So yes, I'm attaching K39 to one end of the frame, and working my way forward bit by bit. And even though I have all the parts laid out in a nice fashion, part of the problem with all of this is that right now, even though the parts are laid out, I can't tell what is still in the instructions and what isn't still in the instructions. What I have done in the past is I'll take all the parts out, clean them up, and I will lay them directly onto the instructions so that I can see that all the parts are there. Have I missed anything? So that I can do things like catch that part G4 that was not labeled in the instructions, even though it's pictured in the instructions. And as far as the M1070 Het vehicle itself, part of what makes this fun in a way, or interesting, is that while I am working on this, it's a lot like working on a 1/350 scale aircraft carrier. I mean, there's just so many parts, and it's not really as much of a standalone vehicle as much as it is a platform for other vehicles to tell even more of a story. So you can have the payload that it's going to be carrying and thinking about what you're going to do with that. You can have the crew you can have support vehicles that may be around it depending on what's going on. So there's a lot of potential for this. Again, like I said, very similar, at least in my mind, to 1/350th scale aircraft carrier. So I'm working on putting on a number of the small details on the frame. Again, I did do some of it on the bench top, but again, some of it was done outside of the scope of the camera that I was using at the time. The important part is to get a nice solid fit of the parts, very positive. At this point in time, just trying to make sure that the details match up where they belong. There are a lot of holes in the sides of these frames, so identifying and making sure that you're putting the correct part in the correct spot is very important. So at this point, I've got the one cylinder made that's still drying in the clamp, and I've started putting some of those small details onto the frame, in particular parts that I have been able to positively identify, and these would be, at this point, parts like J5, H17, D23, and again, K39. That said, I'm not exactly sure why I'm not putting things on right now. That's part of the fun of modeling, isn't it? You start getting going, and then you start wool gathering, you start contemplating the nature of the universe, any of a million different things. So, that said, even though there are a lot of parts, I did notice that aside from that one unnumbered part, everything else pretty much goes along very methodically, very specifically, as long as you work from the outside in. And by that I mean do all the small sub-assemblies, like the air cylinder, like the transfer cases, and some of the framework that is located on the outside of the instructions, and work your way in. Another point I want to bring up is that even though it says in the instructions to use the PE MB22, and this is going to be in the upper right hand corner of the instructions, I did not do that, nor did I add the clear plastic parts of JP2 onto this, specifically because this is going to be located on top of part A17. There's still going to be a lot of handling of the frame at this point in time. So what I end up doing in this case is anything that I do not do at this step because of wanting to have better handling characteristics, or leaving something off for painting that I want to add later, I will go into the instructions themselves and I will highlight them with a yellow highlighter. And this allows me to know that I do not have those parts located on the model as of that step, and then at some point in time I'll go back, I will do those parts, and then I will come into the instructions and I will make a note, or I will cross it out, or whatever helps me to know that that part has been taken care of. So right now I'm working on adding some more pieces in there. And again, working from the outside in, it looks like right now I'm working on the pair of H17 parts. And at this point in time, it looks like I'm working on the frame A1 rather than the frame A29. So again, working my way outside to in. So there, yep, I've got parts H17 located on. And now I'm working on part D19. And as I go in, you'll notice that I put the one part down, so I'll go and put a little bit of my liquid cement on. I will press fit the piece in after I had dry fit it, and then I will go back with a little bit more of the liquid cement with capillary action to put more of the glue in where I think it's needed. And then I've got the part glued on. And this can be a really good time as you're building this to sit and think about what is the next step that you're going to do while you're gluing something on. Also, checking over all the parts to make sure that seam lines are removed, that flash is removed. There's nothing more frustrating than missing a piece of flash on a locator peg and attempting to put the piece in and just not quite getting things to sit right and finding out, oh, I missed this, and so you have to clean it up while it's got some liquid cement on it. That's messier and not nearly as pleasant. So here I finished the one side of the frame. Now I flipped it over so I can put the parts on the other side of the frame. So right now, looks like I picked up part E36. A little bit of glue. And then I've got two parts of J31 sitting on the bench. Now I have had a few people ask me, are there any specialized tools that I work with when I'm building a kit? What's the real basics that I want to use or I carry around with me? And I do have a jump kit of sorts that I take with me on a vacation, or that I always have around, but it's pretty small. I carry a bottle of Tester's liquid cement. I carry a pair of straight edge tweezers, which you can see in the video on the upper part. I carry an X-Acto number 11 knife, and I carry a pair of flush cutting nippers. So my thought is I can find the part, I can nip it off, I can use the X-Acto knife to clean it up, I can use the glue to glue it on, and I have the tweezers available if for whatever reason I end up needing to put things in a small spot.